In the bustling atmosphere of the diner, a voice suddenly broke the silence. "Hey, your face is ruining my appetite," the man said loudly, causing everyone to turn and look. The sound of forks and plates clinking stopped, and the coffee ceased to pour. The waitress, Callie, didn't react. The water in her hands spilled over her apron, but she maintained her calm. The scars on her face, illuminated by the diner's bright lights, couldn't be hidden, and they seemed to tell a story she'd never shared. Everyone fell silent, but no one spoke up. After a moment, in that brief instant, a teenage boy sitting in the corner, unnoticed by anyone, suddenly stood up. He didn't speak loudly, but his words carried an unexpected weight. 6 words that changed everything. Ben, the manager of this diner, had worked in many noisy restaurants in Denver, facing hectic kitchens and demanding customers. But what he witnessed that Sunday morning, in a small town named Maple Ridge, was a completely different story. Maple Ridge Grill was a simple roadside diner. Vinyl-covered chairs, thick ceramic cups, and venison burgers that regulars swore could cure any pain. Ben had only been working here for 3 weeks, replacing the retired manager. He thought it would be a simple, temporary job, but everything changed the moment he saw Callie. She moved between tables, 3 plates of food in her hands, a coffee pot in the other. Her long hair fell lightly, and her eyes never lingered too long on anyone. Callie had worked here longer than Ben, always on time and efficient. But that morning, under the diner's harsh lights, Ben saw the scars on her face. One long scar from her temple down to her left cheek, and another curling around her neck, disappearing into her collar. These scars weren't hidden, but Callie didn't try to explain them either. She just quietly did her job. Most people didn't look directly at her, or if they did, it was just a passing glance. Ben couldn't help but notice. He was wiping the counter when he heard the man at table 6. "Look at her face," he laughed loudly. "Eating breakfast and seeing this, it's like a horror show," the man said. His friends' laughter echoed. But Callie didn't respond. She continued with her work, pouring coffee, swapping out plates of food. No one dared to say anything more, and Ben felt his heart tighten. Though he couldn't see it, Ben sensed Callie's pain in every motion she made. She heard everything. And she had become accustomed to the dreadful silence. But when Ben started moving toward the man, he suddenly noticed a teenage boy, sitting in the corner, not laughing, not avoiding looking at her. The boy was staring at Callie, not with pity, but with respect. A respect that Ben didn't understand at that moment, but he would soon come to understand fully. That morning, the silence was once again broken when Callie passed a table, placing a dish down. A woman wearing pearls glanced at her and whispered to her husband, "Why would they let someone like her serve food?" Ben heard it clearly. Callie heard it too. But she didn't flinch, continuing her work as if nothing had happened. However, Ben noticed the coffee pot in her hand trembled slightly. Her silence wasn't peace. It was a shield slowly cracking. He turned to Frank, the cook, and realized there was an uncomfortable silence in the air. "Don't intervene, boss. She's been living with this since she started working here." No one intervenes. Frank shrugged. Most people are kind, but there are those who can't accept differences. But Ben couldn't stay silent. He couldn't accept the cruelty, the complicit silence, as if everything had just become a habit. Later that morning, it happened again. A little girl, maybe 5, pointed at Callie as she wiped down a table. "Mommy, what's wrong with that lady's face?" The mother grabbed her daughter's hand and pulled her close. She gave Callie a look that made Ben's stomach twist. "Don't stare," she snapped. "It's rude." The little girl didn't understand. "But she's the one with the scars," she whispered back. Ben caught it all. Callie just smiled a soft practice smile, like she'd been doing this for years. A few minutes later, Ben found her at the sink in the back room. She was splashing cold water on her face, hands shaking slightly. He paused in the doorway. "You okay?" She didn't answer right away. She dried her face with a napkin, then looked at him in the mirror. "It's just a face," she said softly. "But people treat it like a warning sign." Ben didn't know what to say, so he said nothing. Callie glanced down. "You don't need to protect me, Mr. Travers. I'm used to being invisible." When they stepped back into the diner, something caught Ben's eye. That boy in the corner booth, he was still watching Callie. Not her scars, not her uniform, her eyes. He wasn't avoiding her. He wasn't sorry for her. He was paying attention. Ben didn't know why. Not yet. But the way that boy looked at her made Ben believe that maybe not everyone was pretending. By 11:15, the diner was packed. Callie moved like she always did. Quiet, focused, efficient. But something was different. Ben saw it in the way customers started asking for Melissa instead. And Melissa didn't argue. "I'll take table 4, she mumbled. "They, asked for me." She didn't meet Callie's eyes. And Callie, she didn't flinch, didn't protest. She just nodded. Like she expected it. But even in her own section, the looks were sharper. The whispers, louder. Then came table 5. A man in a golf shirt leaned back in his chair as Callie approached. He looked her up and down. "Isn't there someone normal who can bring her food?" Callie didn't blink. She didn't argue. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, sir. I'll find someone else." She turned quickly. Ben counted the steps. 1, 2, 3, 7, straight into the kitchen. He followed. "You don't have to put up with that," he said. "It's not the first time," she replied. "It won't be the last." Her voice didn't shake, but her hands did. The final blow came just after noon. 4 men walked in loud, laughing, too confident. Khaki pants, collared shirts, sunglasses indoors. They sat at table 9, Callie's section. Ben watched her shoulders stiffen. Still, she approached with a notepad. "Welcome to Maple Ridge Grill. What can I get for you today?" One man grinned. "Hey, Scarface, got any pancake specials?" His friends burst out laughing. Another chimed in. "What happened to your face? Bar fight? Chemical spill?" Ben stood up. He was ready to intervene. But Callie held up a hand, not to stop the customer, to stop Ben. She looked the men in the eye. "I was injured in Afghanistan. Now, what can I get for you?" They didn't back down. "Afghanistan?" One of them snorted. "What were you doing there, huh? Serving coffee to the real soldiers?" Ben took a step, but before he could say anything, a glass crashed to the floor. One of them had knocked it over on purpose. "Oops. Look what you made me do with your shaking. Clean it up." Callie crouched down, hands trembling, picking up shards of glass while the whole diner stared, and then, from behind the counter, Dottie stepped out. Arms crossed. "Emma, clock out." Callie looked up. "I haven't finished my shift." "You're making people uncomfortable," Dottie said flatly. "It's bad for business." Ben's stomach turned. Callie stood slowly, a thin line of blood on her palm. "You're firing me. Because of how I look?" Dottie didn't answer that. "I'm letting you go because of the complaints." No one in the diner said a word. Even Melissa looked away. Ben clenched his fists. And then, it happened. The teenage boy in the corner booth, the one who had been watching in all morning, stood up, silence, thick, total, unmistakable. Ben turned his head slowly. The teenage boy, the quiet one in the corner booth, was standing, thin, nervous, maybe 16. But his voice didn't shake. He looked at Callie, then turned to the room. She saved my father's life. Twice. 6 words. And everything stopped. Callie froze. Dottie did too. Even the men at table 9, silent. The boy reached into his wallet, pulled out a worn, folded photograph. He held it up high. This is my dad, Captain Joel Merritt, 10th Mountain Division, 2 Purple Hearts. He told me about a medic. A woman said she didn't just save him, said she saved others too. The boy took a breath. His voice steadied. First time, their convoy hit an IED. Dad's vehicle flipped. He was trapped. His leg crushed, gas leaking everywhere. Enemy fire started from the ridge. Everyone dove for cover, except her. She ran into the fire, alone. Ben felt the room shift. No more chewing, no more forks, only breath. She pulled my dad out, dragged him clear as the wreck started to burn. Used her body to shield him from the second blast, then carried him back on her shoulders, all the way to the field hospital, while bleeding herself. They say she passed out 2 minutes after handing him over. But before she did, she apologized. Apologized for being slow. Ben blinked. Hard. Callie didn't move, but her hands had curled into tight fists. Second time, 5 months later, a night raid. Ambush. My dad took a bullet to the chest. His vest stopped it from killing him, but not from breaking him. They called for a medevac. No signal. Comms were jammed, but she didn't wait. Callie ran through open terrain, pitch black. No backup, no orders. Just her and a med bag. She stitched a collapsed lung by headlamp, used a pen casing to improvise a chest tube, then dragged him out, crawling through rocks and mud and bullets. She didn't stop. Not until he was safe. The boy turned back to Callie. I never knew her name. Not until today, but I've seen her eyes before. In the photo that sits on our mantel every single day, he turned toward Dottie. You didn't ask who she was. You just saw her scars. He looked around the room, but those scars, they're medals. You just don't know how to read them. An older man near the back stood up. I served in Vietnam, he said. 48 years ago, I sat here, watched and said nothing. Ma'am, he saluted her. I'm sorry for my silence. Callie's eyes shimmered. A woman near the counter whispered, forgive us. Even the men at table 9, their heads were down, their shoulders slumped. Ben stood in place, hands at his sides, throat thick. The boy took one last step, stood beside Callie, offered her the photograph. My dad says he owes his life to you twice. I owe you my father. You're the bravest person I've ever seen. Callie took the photo, her hands trembled, her face still, but her heart, you could feel it break open and start to heal. Then one clap, another. Soon the whole diner was standing. Not for pancakes, not for coffee, but for Sergeant Callie Rhodes. The combat, bat medic, the silent hero, and the woman they finally saw. The applause didn't stop right away. It built slowly, like something that had been waiting to be released. Callie stood still, eyes wide, hands shaking, not from fear, but from something else. Relief, she'd been holding her breath for years. Now she could finally exhale. Dottie stepped forward, her face pale, her mouth tight. In her hands, a folded apron. She held it out. I didn't ask, she said. That was my mistake. I'm sorry. Callie looked at the apron, then at the people around her. All the eyes that once avoided hers, now looking with respect, with guilt, with something close to love, she didn't take it. Thank you, she said softly. But I don't need it anymore. By evening, the story was everywhere. A local journalist had posted about it online at U. Title: The Hero Behind the Scars. It spread like wildfire. 2 days later, Callie got a call. It wasn't a sympathy call. It was an offer from the VA regional office. "We need people like you," the voice said. "People who understand what it means to come home changed." They offered her a position, community outreach coordinator. She wouldn't just survive anymore. She'd lead. She'd help others find their way back. On her last day at Maple Ridge Grill, the diner was full, but not for brunch. People came to say goodbye. Some hugged her. Some handed her letters. Some just stood near her quietly, ashamed, grateful, changed. Someone gave her a small wooden plaque. "Scars don't shame us. They prove we came back." Josh Merritt stood by the door next to his parents. His father, Captain Joel Merritt, wore his full dress uniform, chest out, eyes clear. He stepped forward, saluted. "Sergeant Rhodes," he said, voice proud, reporting home. Callie smiled. They hugged like family. 6 months later, Callie stood on stage at Maple Ridge High School. It was Veterans Day. She wore a navy blazer, a flag pin on her lapel, her scars still there, still visible. But now, people looked at them with understanding, with awe, with respect. Josh, now a junior, introduced her. "Heroes don't always wear medals," he said. "Sometimes they wear aprons. Sometimes they carry scars that carry more weight than any uniform. This is Sergeant Callie Rhodes, and she taught me what courage looks like." Callie stepped to the microphone. The room went still. "You might forget my name," she said. "You might forget my story, but don't forget this. Scars don't make us broken. They mean we survived." She paused. "And sometimes we survive so someone else can live." Back at the diner, a new plaque was placed on the wall, right by the register. It read, "Courage serves daily. In honor of Callie Rhodes." Below it, a photo, Callie in uniform, smiling, holding a coffee pot, her scars visible, her head held high, because not all battles are won on the field. And not all heroes are seen at first glance. But when truth rises, when courage is finally honored, the whole world stands. In our darkest moments, kindness still finds a way. Often in the quietest places. Not everyone who helps wants recognition. Some just need to know that today, someone isn't going hungry. And sometimes, that alone is enough to change a life. You may forget the story, but if no one retells it, history stays silent forever.